Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on the 2023 Norden Standard. If some of you have been long-time watchers of my channel, you will know that when I went to purchase this Norden, at the time the Expedition models had just come out and all of them within a 500-mile radius had been sold already. So I was not able to get an Expedition version of a Norden. However, I swore up and down that eventually I would have the Expedition version of a Norden. So let's cover what is on an Expedition that I have added to my standard Norden. So we have the factory heated seats and grips. Added those right away. That was pretty easy to get. Center stand. The Expedition skid plate, which I've gone ahead and upgraded above and beyond that to a much thicker Tusk rally plate, along with the factory fuel tank protectors. Rally foot pegs. And then, of course, the tech pack that comes with all of the available electronics options, which I've already done. So we've done all that. So what's the main thing that's missing from a standard compared to an Expedition? Well, that, of course, is the WP XPLOR suspension. And lo and behold, the final piece of the puzzle to my Expedition build has arrived. Now, I was able to get this off of Facebook Marketplace for a really good deal. Somebody listed it at a price. I offered them a much more so that they would ship it to me, and they agreed to it. So I got this week. This setup is in fantastic shape. It came off of a bike with 4,000 miles on it, and even though it's in great shape, I bought a rebuild kit direct from the KTM mothership and a bunch of tools and some fork oil, and I am going to rebuild the forks this morning. I will leave links in the description for all of these tools. There's quite a few of them. I am not going to show a video on how to rebuild these. There is a wonderful section in the Husqvarna Norden repair manual from the factory that you can use to rebuild the Expedition forks, the WP XPLOR forks. And on top of that, if you go on YouTube, there's probably 10 channels that show you physically how to rebuild them. So I'm not going to include that on this channel. I will also leave links in the description for these manuals. I found them on eBay for 35 bucks shipped a piece. Really good deal. The guy that sells them's a pretty good eBay seller. Does a really honest business. So I'll leave links for that. But for right now, before it gets 100 degrees out here, which is what it's supposed to get up to today, I am going to get started on this fork rebuild, which is probably going to be a big mess. I've never done it before, and I want to learn how to do it, so I'm going to teach myself how to do it. The other thing you're probably going to need is some soft jaws for your vise, and I will also leave a link in the description for these as well. Pretty handy items. They come with magnets on the back, and you can clamp whatever you want in there without damaging it. So, but yeah, other than that, let's get started. All right, guys, one down, and I'm working on the second one. So I got the first one rebuilt, and I'm working on the second one. This actually isn't that bad. The manual shows you how to rebuild the entire cartridge, but I'm not doing that. You're supposed to do that at, like, I don't know, 30,000 miles or something like that, but we're just changing out fluid and seals. I did find a really good YouTube video. I'll try to link it in the description, from Back in the Garage, I think is the name of the channel. two-wheeled rider, and he shows you how to rebuild these things. And I've been double checking the steps that he's using compared to the service manual for the KTM or the Husqvarna service manual, whatever you want to call it. And he's matched everything so far, all the way down to the correct fluid levels. So yeah, let's keep moving forward. All right, guys, there we go. 2 completed fork services. I will leave links in the description for all of the tools that I used, as well as a link to the video that I ended up using, as well as a link to the service manual, which goes above and beyond the actual servicing of the forks. So now we are on to installing all of this, and I think I'm going to start with the rear, which is hopefully less amount of work, and then we'll do the fronts, and then it's just up to riding it around and adjusting it to my preferences. Here we go. All right, I got the rear one in. It's pretty simple to do, however, if you want to avoid having to take the rear wheel off in this plastic mud guard, you can take all the bolts out of the original one, but you're going to have to use a jack to lower this. And you have to lower it quite a bit. So that means you have to lift this quite a bit. It's kind of sketchy. I wish there was a better way to do it. I guess if you had a proper like motorcycle lift instead of a floor jack, it would probably be better. But anyhow, you got to lift it up quite a bit, because this piece right here will not rotate past this unless it's perfectly straight on. You can't slide it in there diagonally and try and flip it into place. It won't work. It'll cut all the wires up that are running on the inside of the frame here. But it's in, and surprisingly, when I set the bike back down, the center stand still works. But that's probably because I have the preload all the way backed off, and all the other settings are backed off too, and I won't know what to set those to until I take the bike for a ride. So we'll keep moving forward. We're going to start on the fronts here. A little more intensive, I guess you could say, but we're going to get them done. All right, we're at this point. One thing you're going to want to make sure you have handy is a screwdriver to go right here, so that if you're working by yourself, you can put a screwdriver in and slide the assembly up. If not, you're gonna have one heck of a time getting that assembly slid up there. But so far everything is bolting right up like it's supposed to. I've got my height set marks at the lowest setting like they were on the original ones, and we're gonna keep moving forward. If you're wondering if you need to replace your brake lines on a standard Norden, go into XPLOR. This is full extension right here, and the brake line still has plenty of slack in it, on both sides even. So some of you were asking about that on one of the forums. A lot of times I don't respond on there. I guess another guy did it and said you don't need it because the Norden has the exact same part number brake lines, both of them, standard and expedition, so it's a pretty easy swap. But yeah, it looks like they're sitting on there nice and relaxed at full length. There's no tension on them. Now we're going to set everything down on the ground and see if I need to purchase or modify my center stand and kickstand, because as you know, the standard Norden suspension is 220 millimeters and the WP XPLOR sits at 240 millimeters. So yeah, we're going to set this down and see what the verdict is. Okay, here we are with the Norden back on the ground, and the center stand does work. However, it only works to a certain extent because the tire is actually touching the ground. So I'm going to have to fix that. I think I have an idea of how to fix that. You could buy the Norden Expedition center stand. However, I think the key is to just find a spacer and weld it onto the center stand that I already have, which will alleviate the entire problem. Let's throw the regular kickstand down that has a lift plate on it already and see how the Norden is going to sit with that. So as you can see, the Norden now sits at a aggressive side stand angle, probably similar to the OEM side stand without that riser plate on it. So I think it'll be just fine. I've figured out a way to, I'm going to weld like a little piece onto the side stand, a little spacer, and that should solve the whole the whole center stand issue. But yeah, so I'll leave you guys with that, and I think that's going to be it for this episode, guys. As always, you're going to want to stay tuned. You never know what's coming up. There is a big modification coming up for the Norden, and that should be here around the beginning of August is what I'm told. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. The next episode, I bet you guys can't guess what we're going to be working on. If you look at the 2024 790 Adventure Rally build that I'm working on, you'll notice that on this one, we have non-adjustable apex suspension. The only thing you can adjust on it is the preload at the rear spring or the rear shock. So we might be upcycling a little bit of something in the next episode. But other than that, I hope you guys are staying safe, taking care of each other, and as always, I will catch you next time. See you later. Bye-bye.